I'm Heather.
And I'm Desiree.
And you're listening to
the Perpetually Overdue Podcast.
Okay, happy holidays, Desiree. We have recorded this 3 times.
Happy holidays, Heather, for the 3rd time.
And hopefully the final time.
Fingers crossed.
So, for those who are listening or watching, we've recorded this 3 times. For whatever reason, we just couldn't get our thoughts together. I was going on rambles that by the end of it, I was like, what the fuck am I even saying? I had no coffee.
That's the thing. She had no coffee, guys, from the beginning. Like, she's been up for hours and no coffee yet.
I feel like, though, as somebody who used to work at a coffee shop, as somebody who grew up drinking Bustelo, and if you know, you know.
You know.
That's some heavy shit. That's some adult shit right there. That coffee doesn't really have an effect on me. It's like a placebo at this point.
Yes.
But I still need it to be able to present myself as a functioning human in the world.
I feel like at this point, we have become immune to coffee, but it's become such a part of our ritual in the mornings that mentally, I think we need it to trigger something at this point. Not because it actually is affecting us anymore, caffeine-wise, but it's because our bodies are like, wait, I don't function until this moment happens, and you haven't allowed me this moment. What the fuck?
Yeah, I've basically created a neural pathway in my brain. You wake up, if you want to function, you get coffee, even if the caffeine is not actually having a physical effect on your body.
Yes.
So we got caffeinated, we had a snack, we went on a rant about women's health, plastic surgery, and all of that stuff that'll probably put on a Patreon later on. But here we are. It's our holiday episode, guys.
Yay! I'm so excited. This is my favorite time of year. Fall is my favorite season, but as a December baby myself, because it is my birthday month.
Saggies.
Yes, I am a Sagittarius sun, Aquarius rising. I very much adore this time of year. So I'm, as you can see, very excited.
Christmas used to be my favorite holiday. It is now Halloween, but Christmas still has a special place in my heart. And as you can see, we in my household have started to decorate. There are still some things I'm DIYing for myself, but we wanted to do a holiday episode to basically talk about Christmas traditions, more specifically where they came from, because I think as a child, the way that you grow up, the traditions you do, you don't really know what they're about or what they might symbolize. You think it's fun. It's pretty. It's festive. It gives you
everyone's
the warm
doing
fuzzies.
it. And everyone's doing it.
Exactly. And especially for us who grew up in Florida with no snow, with 80-degree weather in December, we really needed all the festivities and all the decorations to feel like it was Christmas in our part of the world.
Yeah.
Desiree, you're still there.
Unfortunately.
I am in Colorado, so it is feeling very Christmassy. It has actually lightly snowed a couple of times already this year.
No.
It has, yes. I thought of you every time because I knew I was like, Desiree's gonna love being here in this weather. Our Christmas traditions and rituals have definitely changed and evolved over the years. And it's not just because we are ex-Christians, but also because we've actually educated ourselves and learned what those traditions are. So, Desiree, let's have you start. How did your Christmas look growing up? What were your traditions?
For me, I would say I had the typical Christian American Christmas experience that we all saw on TV, celebrated in schools. It was just, what you did. You got a tree, you decorated it, you decorated inside, possibly outside the house. And then also, you're getting gifts for your loved ones. I would say there are small little adjustments, and that's just because I'm Puerto Rican, as you are. And we grew up in a very Hispanic dominant city in this country. For us, we do usually Christmas Eve dinner. and
Mm-hmm.
then spend Christmas Day in our pajamas with our gifts. Would open one gift at midnight Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. We're allowed one gift Christmas Eve and maybe your stocking stuffers, and the rest you open on Christmas morning.
See, I did that with my family, and I did
Mm.
not know until this moment right now that that was a Puerto Rican thing or potentially a Latinx thing because
Oh,
I didn't celebrate Christmas or we didn't talk about things like that as kids. So
no.
I didn't know how other people celebrated. I just thought that that was something unique to my family or something that other families did despite their culture, ethnicity, background, or whatever. It's interesting to know
Oh,
that
that's
that is
funny.
actually a Latinx or Puerto Rican specific thing.
No, it's definitely, I would say, probably Hispanic, Latinx, like across the board, is
Right.
usually you open one gift Christmas Eve night
Hmm.
and then the rest you open Christmas Day. That's so funny that you didn't know until this moment,
I didn't my
all these
whole
years.
life. But I mean, it kind of makes sense because we would eat grapes on New Year's Eve. And
Mm.
I didn't really know that that was also a Hispanic thing or really where the origins of that came from. I kind of knew what it represented because, my mom explained it to me at that,
Hmm.
like, we had to eat them as the countdown was happening. But yeah, I'm not surprised I didn't know that, in other words.
But it also makes sense because, like you said, we don't talk about our traditions. They just
No.
are what they are. And again, because it's not like we were Hispanics in a white dominant city or town, majority of the people in our lives and in our surroundings are also Hispanic. So everyone was doing it. So it would have been something that would have been discussed differently,
Right. That's
So
true.
I get that. So yeah, other than that, the only other thing that probably looks different is that we also celebrate Three Kings.
Mm.
And that is on January 6th. So for us, Christmas didn't technically like end once New Year's happened. We were still in the Christmas spirit until the 6th, where parents usually give their children gifts from the Three Kings. Adults aren't really giving each other anything because
Ah.
we're probably broke after Christmas. But the kids would be all excited. And I'm sure there's more to the Three Kings holiday. We were very basic in what it was. Like, at
Yeah.
this point, we just acknowledge that it's happening on the day it's happening, but that's pretty much it. But again, other than that, everything else was pretty usual to the American Christian Christmas.
Yeah, I will say that as a Puerto Rican as well, we didn't celebrate Three Kings, I don't think ever in my family,
Mm.
which
Oh.
was weird because I had people around me growing up. That was like the one tradition that I did hear about from friend was Three Kings. I don't know why we didn't celebrate it. I don't know if it was just like an assimilation. Let's just do the traditional American holiday. Christmas in America is so tightly wound with the concept of Jesus's birth that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times, as a Christian family, who also originally, my mom was Catholic before I was born, became Protestant Christian before I was born, and that's how I grew up. So, with that, it just made more sense to celebrate, I guess, the traditional Christmas.
Hold
I'm not,
on.
yeah,
I just had an epiphany. Okay, so because this is very on par with today's episode. Well, first off, if you were acknowledging Jesus' birth, Three Kings are the three wise men that
right.
gave Jesus his gifts. Why do we celebrate it after his birth?
Well, because I guess technically in the Bible, the three wise men did come to present gifts to him after he was
Oh,
born.
wait. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's all coming back to me now. For real.
But if you think about it, that's still wrong because December 25th is not the day that Jesus was born at all. If you look at it from a biblical standpoint, if you look at John the Baptist and when he was conceived, if you look at when the archangel Gabriel announced the conception of Jesus, his birth would have been around September. But here's the thing, we're talking about traditions, right? So we're talking about some of the origins. Just a quick little snippet. Roman ancient winter festival, Saturnalia, took place right before Christmas. And then
Mm.
there was a separate winter festival that took place right after that on December 25th. Now, the original name of it, I'm not going to attempt because I would absolutely butcher it, and I'm sure I would offend people with my pronunciation. But the English translation of it is Birthday of the Unconquered Sun, SUN, not SON. So,
Mm.
unfortunately, a lot of Christmas traditions that started off as pagan traditions have been co opted and essentially appropriated by Christianity with a little bit of tweaks here and there on the symbolism and the meaning of things. And December 25th is no different. So basically, they took festivals like Saturnalia, like this winter festival, the birthday of the unconquered sun, and Yule, which we'll
Mm.
talk about in a little bit. Because all of these celebrations were already so popular and so many people were participating in it, they just kind of co-opted it as a way to get people to come in to the church and spend their holiday season within the church. Because I know for
Mm.
me, we used to go to church Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, one of the two.
We never did, weirdly enough. Which is,
Rebel.
I know, I don't understand how we got away with that, because even when
Mm-hmm.
we were Catholic, that's like the thing you have to go to is midnight mass on Christmas. We didn't do that. And then when we were Christian, we didn't go to those services either. But I don't know how we got away with that.
To be honest, you weren't missing anything because it was always the same thing over and over. But the thing is that because those traditions were taken over
Mm.
and the meanings were changed, and it all became this sort of amalgamation of Christianity, Christmas, I think it was effective, honestly. Look at the way that we celebrate Christmas now.
Mm.
A lot of people don't even know that a lot of the things that they do on Christmas have pagan roots because early Christians went ahead and appropriated those things, cast off or probably villainized the pagan way of doing
Most
it.
likely, yep.
Then over time, people just forgot. And then, here we are putting up Christmas trees, putting up wreaths and all sorts of things that don't have any roots in Christianity
At
whatsoever.
all. But before we get into that, we discussed my Christmas traditions growing up, but what were yours?
Oh, right. Okay. So I didn't
We
remember
got
this
really
part because,
excited.
well, mostly because the way that I celebrated Christmas is exactly the same way that you did. We did
Mm.
Christmas Eve dinner,
Mm-hmm.
we did Christmas Day breakfast,
Mm.
and we would open the rest of the gifts aside from the one gift that we would open the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much it, except for like the preparations to get to Christmas, which was getting a tree, decorating it, buying presents, decorating your house on the inside and the outside. There weren't a lot of Christmas activities going on because
Mm.
where we lived, there was no snow. It was 80-degree weather, as I said before.
No Christmas farmer markets, no Christmas
No,
activities like sledding and cutting your tree, and
no, it
none of
really
that.
wasn't anything like that. I mean, now as an adult, I get to experience those things, but as a kid, because of where we lived, there wasn't a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
So mine was pretty boring. I will say this, Santa was one thing. I didn't really grow up hearing about Santa from within my household. It was more of like media, as in kids' programs, books, school, and just everywhere advertisements.
Mm.
Just the seasonal thing was Santa. So I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that I ever had that transition from, oh, I believe Santa's giving me my gifts, to, oh, Santa's not real, heartbroken. Because I was giving my mom my Christmas list. Like, I know who
Mm-hmm.
had the bucks and who was making the run to the store to get the stuff. But what about you? Did you have like a I believe in Santa and now I don't kind of thing?
I did. My mom's favorite holiday is Christmas season,
Mm,
period. As someone who finds therapy within interior decorating, this was like her time to go all out and decorate. She was all for hamming it up with the whole Santa's coming. What do you want
uh,
Santa to get you kind of
mm-hmm.
attitude. And because we also celebrated Three Kings, she would also tell me that the Three Kings were sending me a gift. When
Okay.
I was 6 years old, though, I accidentally came across a gift. I had asked my mom, well, I told her I asked Three Kings for this gift. And I think it was like 2 weeks before the Three Kings Day, the
Mm-hmm.
gift was in her closet. And I was like,
Ooh.
but how? Wait, what? And all of a
Heartbroken.
sudden, innocence was shed from my subconscious. My spirit, my soul was heartbroken at this sudden reality. Because obviously, if I was like, wait, if Three Kings aren't real, is Santa not real?
Start connecting the dots now.
So I would have probably gone on longer believing Santa was the one coming down my non chimney to send me gifts because we didn't have those. We didn't
No.
question how he was getting in the house. We just,
Magic,
mhm,
Desiree, duh.
duh. So yeah, at 6 years old, my bubble was most definitely bursted.
Well, and funny enough, when it comes to Santa,
Mm,
a lot of Christians reference back to St. Nicholas, who
yes.
used to leave gifts in people's shoes. However, there is an even older reference, or at least comparison, to
Mm.
where the parable or character of Santa may have come from.
Which in Christianity was pretty much kind of like how they justified still using Santa within our
Mm-hmm.
religion. Because it was the whole idea, well, because he's connected to this saint and his name was Nick and he gave gifts, and so he's a representation of Jesus.
Which is funny because nowadays I feel like a lot of Christians, or at least I've seen a lot of Christians on social media, talk about how they don't tell their kids about Santa, how they don't
Mm.
celebrate with Santa, and everything is sort of Christ centered. Even though we just talked about how Jesus was not born on December 25th. And that's only if you believe that Jesus was ever born. Plenty of people celebrate Christmas without anything to do with Jesus. They just
Absolutely.
celebrate it commercially, or they might
Mm-hmm.
celebrate it ritualistically in another way,
Mm-hmm.
other than the traditional Christian Christmas. So the reference back, or the character that people parallel with Santa, is the Norse god Odin, which a lot of people know through Marvel, but
Mm-hmm.
he existed. That mythology
Way before.
existed before
Way before.
comic books, before the Marvel franchise. But the reason why these two are parallel, these two characters, is, well, first of all, Santa has evolved over time. So
Mm.
originally, Santa rode a horse and not a reindeer. It wasn't until the 1800s, when this poem came out, that got switched over to riding reindeer. So it's
Mm.
very interesting the influences over time through literature, through music, that have created the parable of Santa, or the story of Santa. So, one, they both have white beards,
Mm.
they're in hooded cloaks. Two, Santa used to ride a horse. Odin rides an 8-legged horse through the sky. And then, thirdly, there was a poem, or there might be several poems, that reference elves in relation to Odin.
Mm.
And these elves were considered to be skilled craftsmen.
Yeah.
So, if you think about it, Odin probably actually has more parallels with Santa as we know him than St. Nicholas does. But there's also so many other traditions and rituals that we don't know about. When did you
Mm.
start to discover, oh, this is not what I thought it was, in terms of like how you celebrated Christmas as a kid?
Mm. Well, okay. During my Christian years, early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
I do remember someone had mentioned how Christmas trees technically had a pagan origin, but it was so quickly mentioned and then quickly shoved under the rug because, again, the theme of organized religion is don't ask questions, don't look too closely
Mm-hmm.
at things. So I remember going, oh, weird. But since no one elaborated, I kind of moved on from it. So that was probably like the first little nugget that was put in my
Mm-hmm.
mind. But again, didn't pay much attention. And then it wasn't until honestly, only in the last 5 years have I
Yeah.
slowly either come across information about the real origin to a lot of things.
Hmm.
And I would say a good portion of information that has come to me was while researching this episode. That I was like, I did not know that.
Tell me about it. I had the exact same experience. And I will say this to reference back to what you said. I feel like it's always the Christmas tree is the first thread that starts to unravel, where they're like, hey, did you know this thing that you do?
Yeah. Because
It
I
has
think
nothing to do with Christ.
because it makes sense, like while you're in your Christian faith and you're celebrating
Hmm.
Christmas, that one day you go, why do we have Christmas trees actually? Like,
Yeah. What's the point of that?
because no one talks about it, no one mentions really why, and it's just something we just do. I feel like it's the most obvious symbol of Christmas that we go, why do we do this?
And there is a whole reason behind it. There is a whole reason behind Christmas trees. There's a whole reason behind the ornaments that we put on Christmas trees. I will say the most shocking thing for me that I found out was mistletoe. I
Hmm.
had no idea that mistletoe and holly, which we hear about in Christmas songs all the time, and we
Yes.
have mistletoe, it's such a symbol of the holiday season, that the primary purpose of the mistletoe had absolutely nothing to do with kissing.
Nope.
People used to put them in their entryways above their doors so that evil spirits would be warded off or caught and captured in the prickly leaves of the holly. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the purpose of mistletoe. But I will say this, I think that where the kissing under the mistletoe thing came from is that there was a secondary purpose for mistletoe, and
Mm.
that was for women's fertility.
Mm-hmm.
So young couples would put a mistletoe on their headboard. So when they, you know,
Ouch, I go, oh wow. Please go to YouTube so you can see what Heather
the
just
disgusting thing that I just did. But anyway, so that they would have a baby. And
mm-hmm.
so I feel like early Christians that again co-opted a lot of those traditions. They were like, well, it can't be about sex because
We don't
we're
do
not
that.
about that. So we're going to purify it, simplify it, and make it about innocent
Non
kissing.
About innocent non-consensual kissing half of the time, honestly.
Girl,
Cause it's
yes,
like just
tell it.
going in for a kiss because you're under a mistletoe. I didn't consent to this, but a lot of times you don't have a choice. At least back in the day, consent wasn't as popular to be spoken about. So people were just
Yeah.
going in for those kisses, whether you wanted it or not.
Girl, sometimes you didn't even know it was happening until it was over. You know what I
For
mean?
real.
Violated. But yeah, the mistletoe was one that I was really shocked about. Was there one that you learned that you were surprised by?
Oh man. When I found this out this week, I was like, oh, if Christians knew, they would lose their shit because it's like their worst nightmare. So,
Okay, bring it on.
Christmas ornaments. The
Mm-hmm.
ball, they're gorgeous. They usually have glitter and ribbons
Mm-hmm.
and sparkly and pretty. And the reason for that is because they are meant to attract evil spirits and
Mm.
get trapped inside the ball.
Oh.
So, the whole point that they are so beautiful is that you wanted to allure these spirits in and hope that they would go into the ball and get trapped in there on your Christmas tree inside your house.
There were so many things that were like warding, capturing
Yes.
evil spirits, which is
Yep.
so funny because a lot of Christians, and this episode isn't about bashing Christians, but obviously that's our background.
We're
So
ex-Christian, so it was our traditions growing up for this season that have significantly changed for us, and that's why we're discussing the differences.
exactly. But also, a lot of Christians, ourselves included, we were told
Mm-hmm.
to stay away from certain things because they had evil, menacing, occultic
Mm-hmm.
type influences on them. And they didn't want us to catch whatever was going to come off of them and latch onto us.
We would be discouraged from even listening to worldly music that wasn't
Yes,
Christian music because it could influence negative spirits inside you.
exactly. So it's funny to me that a lot of these traditions that we do on Christmas that are supposed to be about removing evil spirits from your home, it's something that isn't Christ centered, and anything that isn't Christ centered is going to be looked at as occultic
Mm-hmm.
witchcraft, which is seen as evil and bad and of the devil. And so it's funny to me that they're doing all of these things not knowing the true meaning behind it. Even the tree we talked about earlier, the
Mm-hmm.
Yule tree is supposed to represent the tree of life.
Yes.
And obviously, some of those decorations had other purposes. People would bring them into their homes, but also it was something that brought an entire village together because they would take
Mm-hmm.
a tree, they would put it in the village square, and then everybody would come and they would decorate it. And it's usually with nature.
Yeah.
So berries, fruits, pine cones, all sorts of things like that. You'll see on my tree, for those who are watching, I have orange slices. I have some pine cones. I have cinnamon sticks. That's all to represent Yule.
Yeah, because like the tree, I don't even think they would be so opposed to the tree's origin. Is the fact that they don't even know that evergreens, because they last through winter, they're the one tree that is not dying as all the others are. It's
Mhm.
staying green and vibrant, and it represents, as you said, life and continuing through winter. And so the representation of it, the decorating of it, the honoring of the season of Yule. Yule is one of the oldest winter solstice festivals in the world. So
Mm,
this dates back a really long time, and all of these traditions where honestly it was honoring nature, it was honoring the light and warmth and the return of the sun. It was all
mm,
centered around the natural order of what happens in nature throughout the seasons and in this specific time. Hence, even the things you put on your tree are the things that are thriving during these seasons, the things we're
mhm.
using to bake, the things that we're feasting together. It's a beautiful season, but a lot of people don't know where the origins came from.
Yeah, and a lot of the items, even like cinnamon, I know has some spiritual significance
Yes.
as well. So it's interesting. There is so much more than just the tree and just the mistletoe. One that I also was surprised about was wreaths,
Mm.
because that is super common. Even if you go out into your town and you see businesses decorated, 99.9% of the time they'll have a wreath on there. And people used to question, like, okay, well, what is the symbolism of this? And I know, again, when it got co-opted, when it got taken, it was supposed to be representing like the infinity of God, or maybe perhaps the Trinity or whatever. But that was not the original meaning. The original meaning of the wreath was joyfulness, friendship, which is a huge portion of the winter. Because think about it, back then
Mm.
you lived in a community where people very much relied on each other, especially in the winter months, which were
Yeah.
very harsh, to be able to get through the winter and get to the joy of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And the circle is supposed to represent the infinity of goodwill, goodwill of man. But also, in addition to that, it represents the pagan calendar, which traditionally is seen in a circle because of the eight Sabbats around each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that I was like, wow, this is very steeped into pagan traditions. It really has a lot of meaning to it. And we just hang it up because it's pretty most of the time.
Exactly. It's wild because when you think about just how much of Christmas here, at least in the United States, is
Mm-hmm.
steeped around Christianity, like even the whole concept is Jesus is the reason for the season.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, historically, it's not. I feel like people are becoming more open and sharing more about these origins that are steeped in Yule and nature and
Paganism.
thank you and paganism. But for so long, these things were never discussed, and we
Mm-hmm.
have just really adopted everything to be centered solely around Christmas, pretty much. And so much of it, most of it, if not all of it, has
Girl,
nothing to do with Christianity.
I would say most of it. And what's
Yes.
so funny is like I remember not that long ago when I used to work at a coffee shop how people were so enraged about, oh, they're trying to take Christ out of Christmas and yada yada.
Especially if you put an X,
Oh
like
my
to shorten.
gosh. What a huge controversy. And for what? It this season doesn't have anything to do with Christ at all. Not to mention that you have so many different people groups that live in the United States. We consider
Mm,
ourselves to be a melting pot, and yet
mm,
we only ever want to cater to or acknowledge one type of person with one type of belief system, even
mm,
though you have people here with all different types of belief systems that are celebrating in their own way based on those belief systems, based on their culture, that
mm,
are hardly ever being acknowledged. And we're okay for the most part with acknowledging those things as long as they don't surpass
mm.
Christmas. Once they start to threaten that, then it's Armageddon at that
Yeah.
point. I remember the Starbucks controversy where they had additionally, not even changed, they added happy holidays to the cups, to the gift cards, to different things like that.
Oh,
And people lost their ever loving minds. They were like, they're trying to replace Christ and blah, blah, blah. And they're
I
trying to
remember
be, and this is before woke was a thing.
way before.
The woke back then was politically correct. If you remember, a lot of people were like,
Oh,
oh, I don't like that we're heading towards being more politically correct.
PC. That's not PC.
Yeah, the PC culture. They thought that Happy Holidays was PC when all that it was doing is acknowledging that there are other celebrations that are taking place right now. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, to just name a few.
Yeah.
There are other things that are taking place other than Christmas. So Happy Holidays is just encompassing all
Neutral,
of those,
universal.
and they were so upset about it.
I
And it's
remember.
so funny to me because now we're like, Jesus is not the reason for the season. He hasn't been for a lot of people who don't even believe in
Mm-hmm.
that belief system. But in addition to that, even if you do believe in Christ, that's not when he was born. That's not when we should be celebrating. There's no we.
No,
Sorry.
no, no.
That's not when y'all should be celebrating his
Exactly.
birth. It happened in September. If it happened at all,
Ex-
go and celebrate then. Leave December for the winter solstice. Yule pagans, please.
No, 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 no.
Mhm.
We're not saying
I'm just
you
kidding.
do you. You want to still celebrate Jesus in December, you do you. We're just saying that it doesn't hurt to know what you're celebrating. If you choose Christianity as your religion and you want to celebrate Christmas coinciding with Jesus, that's fine. But I would say it doesn't hurt to want to understand what it is you're celebrating and why it started and where its origin comes from, instead of just blindly celebrating something, which is what we did most of our lives.
True.
And so now we're just going, maybe we should know why. That doesn't, that's not a bad thing to want to know why.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to be a little bit more controversial. This is my opinion and my
I'm
opinion
always
only.
I'm always playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. But my opinion is I don't like the appropriation of something
Mm,
to then turn around and villainize it
that.
or to just completely erase it
Mm-hmm.
from history, to tell the world this is what this means when that's
Mm,
not its origins.
mm,
But even more importantly, to say this is evil, this is bad,
that.
because it doesn't align with what you believe in. So for
Yes.
me, I think that you can do whatever you want to do.
Of course.
Everybody is an adult, hopefully, that's listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
And If you want to celebrate Christmas that way, that's fine. I think as long as you are aware of what the origins are and you have a respect for that and the fact that people will celebrate it how they see fit.
Here,
We
here.
can respect each other and agree to disagree.
Exactly.
But I don't agree with appropriating other people's cultures and belief systems and changing the entire meaning just to get seats in a pew. That's my opinion.
Mic drop. And I think that's definitely that plus, because you can go with the argument like, well, that was the history of it. I didn't make that happen.
Totally.
That was hundreds of years ago. True. But then that's where what she said earlier, the point of understanding where the origins of what you choose to celebrate and how you choose to celebrate came from, and not villainizing those who want to honor that origin. Because unfortunately, at least within Christianity, and we know this from experience of like 15 plus years, is that fortunately anything related to the word pagan and paganism is looked as demonized, as evil and wrong. That's the part that's not okay that we're saying.
And I totally agree with that. And also, I think that there is a way to celebrate holidays in a way that is respectful, if that makes sense. So, for example, Thanksgiving. Very hot topic, especially because when we look back in history and we look at how Thanksgiving came about, and when we look at colonization and the destruction of colonization on the indigenous people, and so much more, it feels kind of icky sometimes to celebrate Thanksgiving because of what we know to be the origins of Thanksgiving. And though a lot of people have shifted away from celebrating the pilgrims, or as I like to call them, the colonizers, into gratitude and appreciation for family, for health, for the blessings in your life, I think that there's also a way to acknowledge the indigenous people that were affected. For a lot of people, indigenous people in this country, it's a day of mourning. I think if you're not indigenous, being able to acknowledge the pain that was caused on that day, maybe supporting some indigenous owned businesses, using your influence with your sphere of people that are around you, as well as the platforms of social media, to educate and talk about this topic, to acknowledge the pain that was inflicted on indigenous people from this day on, and to have an acknowledgement of that the land that we're currently on is indigenous land that was stolen, and to acknowledge maybe some of the groups of indigenous people, the tribes that lived on that particular land when the pilgrims came over. I think those are small things that you can do in addition to having turkey and mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce from a can. Don't come for me. That's what I like. Don't fucking come for me. But I think there's a way to maintain some of those traditions of it's a day that we all get off of work. It's a day that we all come together to celebrate as a country. We can also acknowledge the origins of that day and honor those origins in a way that is respectful to the people that were affected by colonization. So I think it's the same with Christmas. I think it's the same with Yule in that sense.
Agreed. Actually, that was perfect. Yeah, perfectly said, because that is a great example how we can choose to adapt like we did with Thanksgiving. We can do the same with Christmas and the season. And for a lot of us, I mean, we don't even realize how steeped in nature the things that we choose to do for these holidays. Because even let's say Thanksgiving, it's very much about the autumn equinox, and it's about the harvest of food before winter, and the being grateful for the harvest that the earth has provided so that we are taken care of through winter seasons and things like that. And same thing now with the winter solstice and Yule and Christmas. It is a time of goodwill, and it's a time where people come together because, like you said earlier, It was all about the harsh winters and a community needing to be there for each other and help one another and provide for the town in general. And that very much still carries over to the whole nature of Christmas, even. So,
Hmm.
as long as we are acknowledging the origins of where these seasons and holidays we celebrate came from. And like you said, we respect them even if we choose to celebrate or believe differently. That's what I think at the end of the day is important.
I agree with you. So now that we have covered how we grew up with Christmas traditions, how we figured out where some of the origins of those traditions came from, how are you now moving forward going to celebrate this holiday?
Mm. I would say, since for me personally, it's been something I've only come to learn in the last 5 years, it's very much slowly evolving.
Hmm.
So, for the most part, Christmas looks fairly the same. I
Hmm.
think now the difference for me is that with me and my family, my mom and I will create like winter solstice altars, and we will have themed colors for it, and kind of
I
just
like
have
that.
like, yeah, it's really sweet. It's something we do together. And I think me personally, I want to adapt more of a lot of like the homemade craft
Mm,
decorations that you have really gotten into this year, that
yes.
I am envious about because I love that, and I would love to incorporate those more. I would love to, if we have a wreath, for it to be something I actually built and create using intentional pieces that I want to
Hmm.
put on. So for the most part, I would say it's something that's evolving with time, and it's something that I'm still figuring out what it's going to look like for me. But so far, for the most part, it does look kind of the same. I think it's more mentally where I'm at is different, and the intentions behind
Yeah.
how I celebrate is different more than actions.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, you don't celebrate Jesus
Oh, that's a major,
at
yeah.
this holiday. I would say that's a major difference.
That's a major. Christ is not the reason for my season. So,
Yes,
so very much,
exactly.
yeah, that's a big change. Yeah, not me. Maybe my family.
Hmm.
Even my family may be still,
Extended.
my extended family may still be putting out nativity scenes and things like that, but
Hmm.
it's not something that I connect with in any way.
Yeah, same. Even some of my immediate family members are still celebrating Christmas in the way that we did growing up. For me, I went all in this year from celebrating Christmas. It's been a while since I've celebrated Christmas in the Christian tradition,
Mm.
but I would do all the same things. Go get a
Hmm.
tree. It was fun for me to live in a state. I used to live in Washington where I could
Okay.
actually go and cut down a tree myself, decorate it. There was snow on the ground. There were so many Christmas markets that you could go to. It was a dream come true. It felt like a Hallmark movie at times.
Mm.
So that was really special. This year, because I'm stepping into my own practice of green witchcraft, I wanted to celebrate Yule, but I didn't really know where to start.
Mm.
So I learned some of the traditions and I am making it my own. First of all, I don't want kids, so I'm not going to be hanging a mistletoe on my headboard.
No.
And there are some things that to me don't really apply to modern life and the
Mm.
comforts that we now enjoy, as far as we don't grow our own food, we don't have to worry about not having a good harvest because we have a surplus of food in the supermarkets that we can just go to and purchase that
Hmm.
other people grow. So with the tree, I tried to make it a little bit more homemade. We have like felt ornaments, some of
Mm.
which we made ourselves. We have orange slices, cinnamon, pine cones on there. I have made a Yule broom, just a whisk broom. It's about this big if you're watching on YouTube or
Oh,
Spotify.
it looks so much bigger in the picture.
It is very small.
It looks so
It's
much
very
bigger.
small. I have made one wreath so far, but I have two more that I want to make.
Love it.
and I'm doing Yule logs this year.
Mm,
So and we're not burning them. We don't have a fireplace. I know
mm,
traditionally you burn the Yule log, but that's not what we're going to be doing. There will be candles in them, but that's about where it ends. And then just acknowledging some of the parts of Yule
mm.
that I feel like are applicable. I feel like it's a time for introspection and
Yes.
reflection,
Yes.
looking at this past year, all the things that took place, the relationships that you've had, grown, cut off, whatever the situation, sort of map out how you've grown, map out where you are in your life and where you want to go.
Mm,
Because once the winter season is over, it's time for you to put into action those things that you've thought about in this season.
mm-hmm.
So for me, it's a time to sort of sit with myself more than any other time of the year,
Mm,
to really do some inner healing, to reflect on myself, to figure out the areas in my life in which I can grow, how I can better the relationships that I have around me, and
mm,
how I can better the world around me. I feel like that is the true reason
mm.
for the season.
And and it's interesting because what I love about that and what I think is so important is that because of modern day, this
Hmm.
time of year is actually the most stressful, chaotic,
Yes.
and your mind is all over the place.
Hmm.
You're trying to budget presents and things. There's so much chaos in our minds when it's supposed to be the very opposite of that. It's
Yes.
exactly what you described. That's what should be for this time of year. And unfortunately, because of commercialism and again, just our modern age, it's the very opposite. So it's something that I need to also remember. And we encourage you guys to, in the midst of all the chaos, go, let's take some time to just do some inner reflection and find some peace. Get yourself a nice hot cocoa, get your cozy, fuzzy socks on if you're somewhere cold. Do it for me because I can't. It's too hot here to do that. Sit in front of a tree if you have one and just watch the lights. People find meditation to be hard, and I'm one of them. But it is very much something as simple as just watch the lights on the tree.
Hmm.
Don't think too hard. Don't try. Just sit, sip your drink, and whatever comes to mind, be grateful. Think, like Heather said, think about things of the past and decisions and people and things maybe that you've chosen to cut out or put boundaries on. Like, this is a time to really go, I want to walk into this next season that
Hmm.
just so happens to be a new year and be ready for all that's coming and be at a place where I feel mentally strong and capable to
Hmm.
take on this next time that we're going to be entering in after.
Yeah, especially because historically, people were inside for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
We were almost like animals hibernating. We
Yeah.
had no choice because of the elements, and we didn't have the industrial things that we have now, like the roads and the cars and the stores that we can all go to and have access to. We live
Centralized
in
heating.
Exactly. We live in an age in which I can't believe I said we live in an age. I feel like I'm on a fucking podium preaching now. But welcome to my TED Talk. We do live in an age where there is no time like that anymore. There's
Mm.
always busyness, there's always time to be doing something. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're not hedged in the way that people used to be, where they had to be in the home and they had nothing but time on their hands to reflect, to think about their lives, to think about what they wanted to do. So now you have to be more intentional about
Mm-hmm.
doing those things. And it's not just for December, it's for the entire winter season
Yep.
to take the time. Because normally we do that when? New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Resolutions, right?
Yep.
It's the only time we stop to think about, like, who do I want to be this year? And it's usually superficial shit. Like, I want to go to the gym, or I want
Yeah.
to eat better, or I want to da da
Uh-huh.
da da. And it doesn't come out of a place of meditation or reflection. It just
Nope.
comes out of like a spur of the moment. Like, what do I want for myself
Like
this
the day
year?
before New Year's Eve, you're thinking about this shit real quick to put on paper.
Exactly. And a lot of the times it's more of like what you hope to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those things are not in your control.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, this is the time to think about the things that are in your control, the things that you can do to better yourself and to better your life. And that takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. You need to really, really think, really
Mm-hmm.
look inward and reflect on yourself. And to be honest, I think that's hard for a lot of people to just sit with yourself,
Oh my God.
to look inward. I think that's
Ooh.
why we busy ourselves, especially in this time of year,
Oh yeah.
because it's hard to sit with yourself, sit with your feelings, and to really process them and go through them. I mean, it's why, unfortunately, suicide rates are so high
During this time of year.
during this time of year because people have put so much emphasis on family
Mm-hmm.
they and togetherness, and a lot of people don't have that, unfortunately. So we have shifted over from self-reflection to let's all get together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing, don't get me
Mm.
wrong, but I think we've kind of left behind the self-reflection part
Mm-hmm.
and only gone towards family and all that stuff. And I think that that's great, but it's also taking a step back. Like for me and my husband this year, we decided not to travel to visit family. We decided we're going to have our Christmas here. We're going to have a relaxed Christmas, especially after this election. And we are going to try to get our minds in the right place
Mm.
because it's been very difficult in the last couple of months. And so it's important. And I think that the stress level for this season can come way down if we start, in a way, putting ourselves first, or at least taking that time to reflect and
Mm-hmm.
really understand it's not about the presents. Those are great.
Yeah, they're fun. Sure.
And spending time with family is also wonderful. But this is supposed to be a time for you to
Mm-hmm.
reflect. And I think it even harkens back to our first episode where we talked about now is the time
Mm-hmm.
for self care, self love.
Yes.
It all coincides each other.
Even though it is a time where it is commonly known that you are coming together with family,
Mm-hmm.
it's like with any relationship. What is usually given as advice that in order to be good for someone else, you first need to learn to be good to yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
need to learn self love before you are able to be healthy enough to give anything to any other type of relationship, not just romantically. And I think even in this time, that is why also it is necessary that we take that moment to ourselves because as we gather with family, I mean, it's almost a cliche, isn't it? That during the
Mm-hmm.
holidays, get ready for some holiday drama.
Yes.
The family's coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna cause the drama, kind of a deal. And it's become a joke, but then that's actually it's a cause of stress for a lot of people to even think, oh my
Yeah.
God, we have to gather with the family. Oh my God, don't talk to Uncle Rick. Careful. Don't tell Aunt Melinda about this thing with her turkey or shoes or God knows what. The idea that in the midst of all this,
Mm-hmm.
being able to take time for ourselves so that we can be in a good state of mind, state of heart, state of soul, I think is valid and very important, especially leading up to coming together and encountering all these different people and energy. You want to be in a good place
Oh,
before and
yeah.
after it.
It is hard sometimes to face a new year,
Mm,
especially when we feel like our last year hasn't been the best for whatever
mm,
reasons. We all have our different reasons. I think
yes.
we almost need that self-care, self-reflection, love in order to be able to actually look forward to a new year and have hope for a better year to come. Because
Mm,
now it's become a cliche of like even thinking that the next year is going to get better. It's more of like same shit, different time kind of thing. And we've given in a little bit to the pessimism. I know that I
mm,
have, and it's fun to joke around about, but that's really not the mentality that I want to have going into the
mm,
new year. I want to be a little bit more hopeful.
same.
And I can understand why it's hard to be that way or to feel that way. But I think being able to take that time will
Hmm.
assist you in being able to formulate that mentality and have that hope that we need for the new year. And hopefully see a shift in your life the way that you want to, because I think when you take one day to reflect and make resolutions, it's no surprise that by the end of January most of those resolutions are out the window.
Yep,
We're like,
absolutely.
we gave it a try. I went
That
to
was
the gym
cute.
twice. Yeah,
That
that
was
was
fun.
cute. Exactly. It's so true. There was a point that you made that I thought was really good that I wanted to elaborate on, and that is this time being about family and how important that is, but also how you need to love yourself in order to be able to love other people. And we hear that a lot. You put your own mask on before you put somebody else's mask on.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that there is a way in which we love ourselves that is not destructive to other people.
Mm.
And I want to make that point because I feel like societally we've shifted into I'm going to love myself to the detriment of other people and their mental health and their feelings. And that's not the self-love that we're talking about. We're talking about the type of self-love that aligns yourself with positivity, self-worth, and is not destructive, not only to yourself, but to other people as well. It's not an excuse to be selfish and go, well, I don't want to do that thing. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, kind of thing. It doesn't serve me because you're selfish. It's deeper than that. It's about working on yourself. It's about digging up the ugly, dirty, dark things that we tend to push aside and not want to look at or reflect on, and actually look at those things and work through them, process through them, and become a better person. That's what it's about. So I wanted to make that one point because I feel like people have taken the self-love movement to a extreme of like, if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do that, and that's my version of self-love. Yeah. Fuck everybody else. I'm going to worry about me.
And it's sad, but it always happens in society where something important is coined and labeled, but then it's talked about so much, and then you get two spectrums of where it's talked about in a genuine, authentic form, and then of course it's polluted into something else that happens with every concept, and eventually that's when things become cliche. And it's only cliche because it is something that it exists and it's a thing that everyone knows about. And so unfortunately it's gotten now to the point where now self-love and self-care are these, like, what's the term? It's a term of like a hot
like
word
this.
or
A buzzword?
Thank you. So it's gotten to the point where now, like, self-love and self-care have become these buzzwords that are looked at as only being cliche, and people aren't taking it seriously. They roll their eyes when you kind of bring it up because they're only looking at it through now the shallow lens which you described, which a lot of people end up putting over it when it's not that.
And I get it. I think self-care can look like getting yourself a coffee or doing a facial or taking a bath or reading a book.
Those are still valid.
Yes, those are all valid. I celebrate those things. But I will challenge, this is the last thing I'll say on this before our call to action, but I will challenge in saying, is it self-love if you still can't sit with yourself, your thoughts, and your feelings, and still continue to be kind to yourself, still continue to think highly of yourself, to think yourself worthy, and it's not about conceit. It's about innate value, and reflect on your actions and be proud of them. Be proud of your actions. Be proud of the way that you treat other people and the way that you treat yourself. So, is it self-love if it's not all of those things at the end of the day? So, for our lovely audience, those that are listening, thank you so much. It has been a journey to get through this episode.
If you only knew, guys.
Mercury retrograde is beating our asses today.
Oh my God. It
so
has
many
been,
things.
We have been at this for 7 hours.
That's not an exaggeration.
It's not. We've had like 2 small breaks in between, but it's been 7 hours.
Yes. And this is not how this day was supposed to go, but
Nope.
It's all good. We do want to start a discussion, as always.
Yes.
The whole point of this podcast is to build community, to start discussions on Instagram, on YouTube. We can even do it on Threads, but Instagram and YouTube are going to be your main platforms.
Yes.
How do you celebrate the holiday season? Do you know where some of the traditions that you may celebrate come from, where the origins are? And how are you taking time to reflect? If you are taking time to reflect for this holiday season to prepare for the next year.
You can answer one or all, whatever you feel like.
And
Bring them on.
We will be in the comments section responding, not giving feedback. I wouldn't say that because we're not therapists. But we'll be responding and communicating and just getting to know everybody within our little perpetually overdue podcast community. So Desiree has all of the things to do when you get onto YouTube. You can tell them, what do they do when they get onto YouTube, when they get onto Instagram?
Here we go, friends. If you are on YouTube and you're watching us, please don't forget to subscribe and also like the video. And as Heather said, it is a great platform to get into discussions within the comments. Wherever you listen to your podcast, be sure to follow us or subscribe to our podcast there. And very important, if you could leave us a review, that helps us tremendously, especially to get eyes on the podcast so that we can find other like-minded friends to connect with. So be sure to do all the things. We have links somewhere wherever you're watching so you can find us. Yes.
If you're watching, I'm pointing in all directions. But if you're not watching, I'm pointing in all directions.
Guys, happy holidays.
Happy holidays. We will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, friends.